And we're live. Welcome, everybody, here to the Lakers Lounge. I'm Anthony Irwin of Lakers Daily, here to talk to you today about what we just saw from Caitlyn Clark as she went off and beat LSU borderline single-handedly. I saw the stat that she scored or assisted on 73 points in that game. And all the while, Kim Mulkey just thought things were going great for Haley Van Lith. So we'll talk about that and how that made me think of a certain Lakers head coach. I also want to talk on the positive side of things after watching that game about what superstars can do for you in basketball if you provide them with even a little bit of help. So we'll discuss that. And then to wrap things up here, we haven't done a lounge in a little while. And it's been a while since I got your guys' feedback on this show. So I figured I would answer some of your questions. So if you guys are watching live on YouTube, get those questions in. If you guys are watching live on Twitter, reply to the tweet that this link went out with, and I'll see those comments. And also hit that subscribe button while you're here. Hit that subscribe button, like it, find some other episodes on this channel as well. And yeah, let's go ahead and get into all of this here. A really fun night of basketball here. Fortunately, the Lakers are kind of off, so we get to enjoy it all together. All right, so first things first, I'm watching this game, and hats off, man, to what Caitlyn Clark just did to LSU. Just unbelievable basketball, what we watched from her. And given how stupid the conversation has gotten about her, with more and more people kind of getting late to the dance and giving their kind of misinformed or uninformed takes about her, it was cool to see her kind of step up and make up for how last season ended for her. So that was really fun. What also helped in in Caitlyn Clark going off like that was Kim Mulkey just deciding, you know what, this is all Haley Van Lith. You got this. And she didn't have this. That it was just clear from the very beginning and then throughout the game that Caitlyn Clark saw nothing but barbecue chicken in front of her anytime Haley Van Lith was standing in front of her. And she just went to work and kept going to work and was allowed to keep going to work because Kim Mulkey never really made any kind of adjustment. And, it reminded me, obviously, in a very obvious way, of watching Darvin Ham coach, where, there's a lot of trust. Obviously, Kim Mulkey really trusted Van Lith to be able to guard Caitlyn Clark. And, that trust winds up hurting her in the end in that, she too much dip on that chip there throughout that game. And there was never any kind of adjustment. And, essentially when it comes to head coaching in all of sports, essentially you have an elite fraction of a fraction of a fraction of anybody who has ever coached who can actually positively impact the outcome of a game. There are far more coaches who can negatively impact the outcome of a game. And then for the most part, everybody else kind of sits in the middle of that bell curve, hoping to just kind of not screw things up. And I'm not saying that game was lost because of Kim Mulkey. No, I wouldn't go that far. Caitlyn Clark was just that special, and sometimes superstars do special things. We're going to talk about that here in a second. But you certainly don't want to, make things easier for that superstar. And LSU has athletes up and down that roster. And I thought it was super weird how long Haley Van Lith was stuck on an island, like very little help being sent to her either. It was just wild to watch throughout the game. And it just reminds me of at the beginning of the season when Taurean Prince was guarding like the top 1% of scorers that the Lakers were going up against night in, night out. And, Ham continuing to think that was a good and smart thing to continue to do. And, Taurean Prince continuing to start over Rui Hachimura, who, oh, by the way, in March only averaged a shade over 17 points on 59% shooting from the field and 47% 3-point shooting. That aged like milk, right? Starting Torian over Rui, and waiting so long to make that adjustment puts the Lakers in the spot that they currently find themselves in, where, yeah, you have to go out and win night in, night out, and hope that you get any help whatsoever. Shouts to the freaking whoever's playing the Suns tonight. I think it's the Pelicans, completely laying an egg as they do whatever they can to keep the Suns in the 8 spot. Really nice of you, New Orleans. But yeah, I was watching this, and the whole time I was watching, I just kept on thinking, you know, Mulkey is screwing this up, and there's no adjustment coming. And I think at some point the players started to sense it too. It's like, where's the adjustment? Where are we getting this? And I could totally see Mulkey being the kind of person who's like, run faster, run harder, try harder. It's like, at some point, can we get something from your end here to try to even this out a little bit? And that adjustment never came. Iowa gets to move on, and will face whoever in the NCAA final, and Caitlyn Clark gets to make amends for how her season ended last year. And I'm really hoping that this year, when the Lakers are in a spot where the Lakers desperately need an adjustment in a key game, that those adjustments come a lot faster from Darvin Ham. I do want to go ahead and credit Caitlyn Clark, because that's the story here, right? Ham Mulkey is a fun little pun on my part, but the story here is, in basketball, it's a relatively simple sport. If you have the best player on the court, which Iowa did, you are going to win more often than you lose. That's how this works, right? In a game where there are 9 other people on the basketball court with you, and maybe only between 17 and 19 other players getting rotation minutes throughout the rest of that game, a single superstar in basketball can impact that game more than just about any other athlete in any other sport. You'd say, well, maybe a pitcher in baseball. Yeah, they have their hand on every play on defense, but they never hit. They don't do anything offensively. You think, well, what about a quarterback in football? Yeah, you're right. They do impact every play on offense, but don't do much on defense. And in basketball, it's this really kind of unique thing where a basketball player can dominate a game on both ends. And the greatest players ever have done just that, right? Michael Jordan wasn't just an elite scorer. He was oftentimes if not, or I guess one of, if not the best defenders on the court. That's why, you heard Raj and me talking about how much we love watching Kobe back in the day, because back then teams still allowed superstars to guard superstars. And LeBron at his apex, right? However many of them you want to point out, LeBron at his apex is capable of impacting a game, obviously offensively, but is also a defensive genius. And even at this kind of somewhat, lessened athletic state, is still capable of impacting a game when he absolutely needs to defensively. I went to lunch, and I hope he doesn't mind me telling the story or whatever, but I went to lunch the other day with Brian Windhorst, and we were talking about like our various basketball stories, and he gave me a really funny one, apparently from some other coach or something like that, and they were getting ready to play LeBron, and the first defensive sequence happened where that team had the ball and the Lakers were on defense, and I guess LeBron fought through the screen, and that coach and the rest of that coaching staff was like, farts. It's going to be a fight through the screen game. It's not going to be a die on the screen and point to where the help should be coming from type of game. And, he's still capable of that kind of a game, right? Well, obviously, we just saw what he did to the Brooklyn Nets offensively. So you never really have to worry about LeBron offensively. And in this one, right, Caitlyn Clark, obviously not an overwhelming defensive presence, but she's so great offensively that she doesn't need a ton of help on offense. You just got to give her some steady enough defensive presences, and she'll get you all the way to the NCAA finals as they currently sit right now. And, it made me think the whole time I'm watching this, like, God, man, like LeBron, Anthony Davis, you shouldn't need, like, putting a decent team around them shouldn't be as difficult as it has seemed for the last few years. And like finding the right combination of players so that the Lakers are a little bit better than mediocre in the regular season shouldn't be as difficult as it has appeared to be, uh, because of the way that this front office operates. And like, we'll see it, by the way. Like the Lakers, if they get into the play-in and if they get into the playoffs, the Lakers are going to push whoever they play in the first round if they don't beat them outright. And it'll be because those superstars play harder and they play more in the playoff settings. And that's when you get a special LeBron, you get a special Anthony Davis. It's why the Lakers have been so mediocre for the LeBron James and especially the LeBron Anthony Davis era in the regular season. And it's why when they get into the playoffs, you see them immediately up their game. So when LeBron and AD have had opportunities in the playoffs, they were up on Phoenix before Anthony Davis got hurt. They won a championship in the bubble, and they reached a Western Conference Finals last year. Basketball is not a complicated sport, guys. Like this is not, we are not reinventing the wheel when we watch these guys play. And the idea that the Lakers have been so mediocre in the regular season, despite having those two players at that kind of caliber who are capable of being the tide that upon which all boats rise, like that's why I have turned into the Joker, right? It's it's why this clip exists. This is why I look like this, everybody. This is why I'm losing my mind. Exactly. Well put, me. Like you watch Caitlyn Clark and what she just did to LSU. That is an elite talent, a basketball superstar, a basketball savant, imposing her will on a basketball game. And you look at the rest of her teammates on that Iowa team, right? Bomani said the joke that I just happened to catch before the game today, where he was like, you could swap out the rest of her teammates with 4 other white girls that you find at Home Depot or something like that, and he wouldn't know the difference, right? And I'd have to bring Sabrina on. I will bring Sabrina on to talk about what we just watched there. And as we watch this sport of women's basketball continue to absolutely crush it and grow at incredible rates, but just give Caitlyn Clark a decent amount of help, and I guarantee you, she's going to do some special things for you. Give LeBron and AD some like somewhat special help, and I guarantee you, those guys are going to be able to figure it out in a playoff setting, and the Lakers are going to overachieve to a certain extent, and do some cool things, right? One year they win a championship, another year they go to the Western Conference Finals, and the year that Phoenix, a team that eventually made the finals, the Lakers were up on them in dominating fashion, right? There was a whole meme about it. That unfortunately the Lakers kind of fell apart physically, but when you get those guys with even a decent amount of help in the playoff setting, good things are going to happen. And so let's this upcoming offseason, whatever direction that the Lakers choose to go in, whether that's going out and going big game hunting for a superstar or retooling by upgrading some of the to get more two-way help on this team, however they choose to do it, you don't need much. Just don't screw it up. All right, I'm going to go ahead and dive into the questions that I've already received from Twitter. This one, I'm sure a lot of people are going to be curious about the answer to this one. This is from @GoLiveSports. Do you still trust your sources given their track record this season, i.e. D'Lo will be traded, Gabe won't return, Vando being out for the season? Well, we don't know about Vando still. Gabe is not available for tomorrow or tonight's game by the time you guys are listening to this. The Lakers are calling it precautionary, but remember, last time he played 14 minutes and then was out for a long stretch of time. So even that, we need to see how that turns out. D'Lo won't be traded. That one I think is kind of, I don't know if I would necessarily hold that against my sourcing, because everybody in the league went into the season thinking that D'Lo was going to be traded. And I was actually one of the people who reported heading into the deadline that it was going to be really quiet. And then eventually I was one of the people who were banging the drum like, no, they aren't going to do anything. And that was because of those sourcing. I could go through my track record this season and talk about every story that I've gotten right. We just heard LeBron on the episode that he did with, I think it was the second episode that he did with JJ Redick on their new podcast, basically say verbatim what I reported goes on in those huddles, where he kind of stares off into the distance. Darvin will draw up a play or something like that. And as they're walking away, LeBron will say, bleep that, and they'll run whatever LeBron wants to run. He confirmed that. The stuff about the locker room turmoil from earlier this year, when the guys from last year's team weren't playing to the extent that they felt like they should be playing, especially together, and the impact that was having on the locker room. I reported that early on in the season. That eventually got confirmed by The Athletic, by their 6 sources that they talked to as well. The stuff about Austin and Darvin, that all got confirmed as well. I could keep on going if you guys want. Like, if you guys want me to continue to provide my bona fides when I'm talking about like the stuff that I know, I can, I guess. But it's like they say in Game of Thrones, right? If you have to continue to say that you're the king, you're not the king. And I don't really feel like continuing to prove to everybody that I know what I'm talking about here. But look, here's how this works. You have your certain number of sources. And when a story goes in a different direction than the way that I reported it, if I get one wrong, what I go and I do is I go and talk to my sources and I ask, what happened here? And essentially what I was told by those sources, who, by the way, earlier on this exact story, by the way, earlier this year, you had Shams Charania randomly report that Gabe Vincent was going to come back against the New York Knicks. I said on this show, at that time I was right. I wasn't writing for Lakers Daily, but I said on this show, I said, hey, that's not quite what I'm hearing. That, and the people that I'm talking to were kind of like wondering what's going on here. And eventually, Gabe didn't play in the game that it was reported he was going to return in, as I said he wasn't going to. And then after that, he played 14 minutes and then wasn't available for the rest of the year. And one can wonder, was he ready to play back when he was ready to go? And that's why the people I was talking to back then were wondering, we don't think that he's necessarily ready to go. It's like this time, fast forward to this time, those same people, when I reached out to them, I was like, this seems kind of weird, right? This feels kind of similar. And they're like, yeah, a little. That's why I reported that there was still doubt that Gabe was going to come back at all this year. Now we'll see. Hopefully, by the way, this is why I don't like reporting on this side of things, because I don't want it to make it seem as if I'm rooting for this guy to not be available so that I wind up being right. All I have is the information. That's it. That's all the information that I have. And when you guys listen to me, when you guys read my stuff, what I am saying and writing is the extent of which I have at my disposal that I can write or report on. There's some stuff that I don't say on the air quite yet, because I want more background information and more context to be able to relay that in a full and proper way. But when I report stuff like that, it's to the best of my abilities there. And so look, in that one with Gabe, I got it wrong. I'll fully cop to that. I should have done more digging. And it's something that I'm going to continue to make up for over the course of the rest of this season, and certainly heading into the offseason when we do a lot more reporting. Just like when I reported that there was going to, I forget what the exact lineup was going to be. And then at the very last moment before that game, Darvin Ham changed his mind and went with a different lineup than the one I reported. And in that case, again, I talked to my sources and they're like, yeah, that's the one we thought he was going with. And then he kind of sat down in the team meeting right before we gave the starters officially and said, we're going to go in this different direction. So that happens sometimes too. I was also, like, if we're talking about bona fide, the whole reason I started doing any kind of reporting was because I had that all wing lineup 24 hours before anybody else, all of your favorite reporters. Regardless, I still trust my sourcing. I still hope that you guys continue to trust me. And I hope that we can still keep this thing rolling together. All right. The next question here comes from KR Swish. With the recent good stretch of basketball, and if Vando comes back, do you see another magical run in them? Parentheses, I kind of don't want them to have that run because it will be another check into Darvin staying put, but still. I just said it. Like if LeBron and AD have even any kind of help whatsoever, I do fully believe in those two guys. When the Lakers have played big and gone with the guys who were good last year, guess what? They've been good again. So I do think that they are capable of another run. Now it does depend on Vando being healthy because he is easily their best perimeter and just all around like on ball defender. They need him to be healthy. We need to see more from Gabe Vincent. I do think if he is going to be available, he needs to play better than we have seen to this point. Yeah, he was okay defensively in the last game, but he's still been terrible offensively this year, and he's going to need to be better, or else he just won't play. And then you need D'Lo to be better in the playoffs than he was late in those playoffs. You need Austin to take a step up from how he played last year as well and continue to develop. And you need Rui to replicate what he did in last year's playoffs. And I have faith in those guys doing that. Obviously, I have real faith in LeBron and AD. And then it just also depends on matchups. If the Lakers see Denver in the first round, you're not going to get a magical run. If you see OKC in the first round, I think you can upset them. 8 can beat the 1 seed. If you see Minnesota in the first round, I think the Lakers can beat them. The only team that I think the Lakers are not capable of beating in a series is Denver. Like they are just that good. But anybody else, LeBron and AD doing some magical stuff, we've seen it. We've seen it plenty. I'm always going to believe in those two. All right, let's go into the live comments. Wow, we have a bunch of them. Woo! All right, so first and foremost, we have a super comment here from Brandon Oing, which means... all right, so if Gabe stays healthy and his three-point shot comes around while still being a good pesky defender, would you put him in front of Spencer for minutes? No. Well, so here's the thing. If his three-point shot comes around, have you guys seen Gabe Vincent's career averages? Like last year's playoff run was very much an outlier for what Gabe typically tends to do from three-point range. So if he is that kind of shooter, which is mostly a streaky shooter, I don't know if I would put him ahead of Spencer. I've really liked what we've seen from Spencer. He is bigger than Gabe, and that allows him to guard more guys than Gabe does. Gabe is still a pesky defender. I will give him that. And I do think that so long as he stays healthy, he'll continue to get better on that end. But even earlier this year, before all of the injury stuff popped up with Gabe, it took him like 3 or 4 games to make his first three-pointer. And never really looked all that comfortable on the ball. Remember, he's playing somewhat out of position when he plays next to D'Lo because D'Lo has the ball in his hand a ton, and he has to do some of that stuff with Austin too. So he never looked all that comfortable. Spencer has continued to get better and better and better the longer that he's been a Laker. And I don't want to mess that up. I really like that trio of guards between Spencer and D'Lo and Austin. And specifically, I like only playing 3 guards. And if Vando gets healthy, I would prefer more of those minutes to go to Vando. And I would prefer minutes at the 2 to go to Prince over Gabe, given what we've seen from Gabe this year. And then you got to get out of the way so that Rui gets as much minutes as he can. And then obviously you have LeBron and AD and maybe a sprinkling in there of Jackson Hayes if you want to go really, really big. and that'll be the extent probably of your rotation. But I need to see a lot more from Gabe before I put him in the rotation ahead of Spencer. All right. The next one here is another super comment, which means God, I love that. Best thing I ever did for the show. All right. Gabe, Vando, Braun, AD, and Austin feeds families. It's a fun lineup. If we had a whole season of Gabe to kind of tinker with combinations and stuff like that, I'd be down. But at this stage of the season, you found something that works here with that starting five. That's going to be your starting and closing lineup, period. And you mess with it too much at this time of year without very much sample size to make any kind of a decision, and you start to worry me a little bit. All right, the next one here is another super comment, which means and that is come offs. Can you see the Lakers playing Rui and Vando together alongside Braun and AD, and whichever of D'Lo and AR is playing well? Yeah, I would love it. Now, the shooting is a concern because you would technically have Vando with the shooting guard. So LeBron would have to continue to shoot the way he has shot all year. AD would need to shoot the ball well, and Rui would have to shoot the ball the way that he did in last year's playoffs. So you have some concern over spacing there. But if you just want to go straight bully ball with enough creativity, and you have either Austin or D'Lo out there with like nothing but hulking. What was the bad guys in Space Jam? Oh my gosh, somebody help me in the live. I can't believe I'm screwing this up. The bad guys in the Monstars. Like that lineup would look like the Monstars, right? Because Austin is big by point guard standards. D'Lo is big by point guard standards, and then you have technically Vando at the shooting guard, and that would just be maniacal. Rui is a big three. LeBron is a big physical four. And then you have AD, who's like slightly above average, I would say, as a center in today's game. And the other nice thing there, I would actually, you know what, Brandon? I would like to see that lineup if Vando is healthy, which is a big if. But that's a lineup that I would trot out there for a few minutes just to see what Denver does with it, because I don't think you beat Jokic with like a singular big presence. Eventually, he's going to figure that out. But if you have enough collective size around him so that those passing lanes get tighter, guys can close out faster and all of those things, and you're punishing guys on the other end, Michael Porter Jr. really testing him defensively, putting Jamal Murray through all kinds of screens and stuff like that. That to me is kind of how you contend with what Denver has going for him. So I know I just said you don't want to tinker too much and stuff like that, but that's a lineup. That's a combination of guys and skill sets that I would like to tinker with a little bit. And I'm more comfortable tinkering with it at this point in the season because those guys are so comfortable with each other coming off of last year's playoff run. And it remains in line with the identity that the Lakers have utilized to get to this point here, where they have been pretty overwhelming since they have starting their best players. It's crazy. It's just absolutely bananas. All right, we have another one here from Brandon Oing, which means Gabe Vincent, Vando, Rui, Braun, and AD would be an interesting lineup. I'd probably stick with the guys that I talked about, either AR or D'Lo, and those four guys. That to me is the right combination of like you're making up for. Vando helps make up for some of the defensive deficiencies that you have between D'Lo and or Austin Reeves. That's a big physical group. And if those guys, technically, if AD shoots even okay, Vando is your only non-shooter on the court. That makes it a relatively modern offense, right? I would again, man, it's too bad that we didn't get enough time here. It's really, really too bad that Max was never able to convince Ham that he's pretty good at basketball too, because he would figure interestingly here with, Gabe and Max, and then those three guys, or Austin and Max, or D'Lo and Max, and Rui, Braun, and AD. It looks like that's too far gone. We aren't probably going to see it, but that combination of just like Rui, Vando, Braun, AD is so big and so skilled, right? Rui is a he's very content operating in the mid range. Obviously, LeBron is LeBron. Obviously, even AD is AD in the right settings, right? Where if you have him in the pick and roll and he gets to roll to the basket with a relatively clean key and a relatively clean runway, that is a hell of a front line there. And then you have Vando, who is your best, perimeter defender there, and he brings all kinds of energy. I don't know how anybody gets a rebound off of that group. It's a big physical group that would wear teams down. I hope that four gets an opportunity to play together more than we've seen it to this point. Before we get to this offseason and decisions are made to move in one direction or another. All right. I am going to go ahead and minimize that. Let's go to the next one here. Kurt Affair writing, do you think Darvin is misusing Dinwiddie? That's an interesting one. I don't think so. Like, I don't like how much time he spent spotting up. If Dinwiddie was a Laker for longer, I would have actually liked to seen more of Dinwiddie on the ball with, say, Austin doing more spot up work. And you get some of that, a little bit more than that than you get with Spencer and D'Lo playing together, because D'Lo does not like spotting up. But like, that's the only kind of tweak I would make there. I really think the bulk of the credit here for how Spencer has looked with the Lakers goes to Spencer himself, because he has really focused on doing the small things. He is really focused on being that kind of mortar that allows the bricks to be as sturdy as they've been. I'm really impressed with Spencer Dinwiddie, and maybe it's because it's a small sample and he's doing his best to impress the Lakers and impress the rest of the league here moving forward, to ensure that he isn't a vet min player starting next year. But I don't really have any complaints with Spencer Dinwiddie to this point. I guess the only one is I wish he was knocking down a shot more, but that's just not really who Spencer Dinwiddie is. All right, let's go. Ooh, this is a fun one. Not sure why I was thinking of this, but was Stanley Johnson a better defender than Cam? They're different. Stanley Johnson, it reminded me more, obviously not of the same caliber, or else he would still be in the league. But the way that Stanley defended reminded me a little bit of Artest in the way that he defended. He liked to have his hands on players. He was a big physical wing, right? So like that was fun to watch there. Cam is a lot more, kind of pouncy than Stanley was. At his best, Cam was really good at navigating screens, staying attached to the ball handler, and applying back pressure even after he gets screened. And that wasn't something that Stanley was particularly good at. So they're very different defenders. I prefer Stanley Johnson to Cam Reddish, to be completely honest, but like that's just because like you have to pick one versus the other. But overall, I think we're probably basically done here with the Cam Reddish experience, and better luck somewhere else next year, I guess. All right, I'm going to answer maybe a couple more here. I got a lot of questions here while we were going. Yeah. At Lakers Dana asking, can the Lakers draft Caitlyn Clark to fill out Ham's new 5-guard lineup for next season? They would have to pry her from the big three, unfortunately. So, that might cut into the luxury tax. George Santiago asking, at what point / scenarios do you let LeBron and AD rest these remaining games of the regular season for the play-in? I think you do as much winning as you can, Dan, and you can do in the near future, and then as you get closer to where the seeding is more concrete, then you maybe, risk a game here or there. But I think overall the Lakers have been very smart, or I guess LeBron and AD have been very smart in managing their minutes and their availability. Um, Lorenzo Quioge asking, why are the Suns playing this well all of a sudden? Because everybody hates the Lakers, clearly. Top trade target this summer. I have my eye on Donovan Mitchell. I think he's a name that I think is going to come up a bunch with. I'm told that the Lakers are relatively confident that they'll have a decent shot at Donovan Mitchell this upcoming summer. I really would like to see if I could pry Mikal Bridges away from Brooklyn, as they realize he's not quite superstar caliber, and maybe embark on their own rebuild, to kind of move past this kind of doldrums that they kind of find themselves in right now. If you could turn, you know, Rui into Mikal Bridges. I love Rui. I've really enjoyed the Rui experience, but Mikal's just a better player, and he would be just an absolutely perfect fit with what the Lakers need from their small forward. That's the direction that I would go in. So it's between Donovan Mitchell and Mikal Bridges. All right, so I'm gonna go with a few more here. Gary, how do you feel about the buzz around the Lakers going for Trey being the most realistic this offseason? I'm kind of on the fence on it. I don't want our core gone, but I know a third star is what the front office wants. Front office, and I would probably say LeBron probably wants a third star. That's how superstars operate as well. But I don't know. I've never really been a big Trey Young guy. I'm going to be completely honest. And if you're trading for Trey Young, that probably means you're gonna have to move D'Lo in a separate deal. You're probably moving Austin Reeves in that deal. So, it kind of depends on who you're going to surround Trey with. But I don't like giving up. Like, you would have to give up probably, Austin, maybe Vando too, Rui as well. And now you're talking about trading two wings for a small guard again. That's just, it used to be back in the day, the unwritten rule was you do not trade smalls for bigs, right? Point guards for bigs. You just do not do it. You do not trade bigs for smalls. And I think right now I'm at the point of like watching enough basketball where I'm like, you don't trade wings for smalls. Wings are what makes teams capable of doing really cool things. And yeah, I think Trey Young would be really fun next to AD, and that would be a fun combo moving forward, even beyond the LeBron time. You could probably say the same thing about Donovan Mitchell. I prefer Donovan over Trey. Um, but I think it's relatively close there. I personally would just try to retool and turn some of these guys who, as they are currently, as they are currently equipped, are more one-way players. See if you could turn some of these one-way role players into two-way role players. That would be my priority in this upcoming offseason. Let's see. I have another one here. Yeah, this is, a fair point as well. Justin Tyndall writing, how about a proper coach with the current roster instead of pockets? I wish that felt more possible than it currently does. Hell, given how much the Lakers, meaning Jeannie and Rob, have riding on Darvin succeeding, it's probably like it somehow feels a little bit more likely that there's roster tweaks before there's a coaching tweak, and that's really depressing to consider. But I would probably say that, like, the Lakers, in order for Darvin to be gone, right, you have to lose in the play-in, or you have to lose ugly in the first round. Anything beyond that, I would imagine Darvin's job is safe, because the people who are making these decisions have a lot riding on Darvin remaining the head coach. Because, like, how can you honestly trust Rob Pelinka to hire his third different head coach? How can you honestly trust the person who made the decision to not hire Ty Lue and then bring in Vogel and undercut Vogel, and then fire Vogel kind of embarrassingly, right? And then bring in Darvin Ham, and Darvin, kind of turn into one of the worst coaches in the league. I don't really trust the instincts of the person who would have made that string of decisions. And, I don't know. I don't know. All right. I think that is going to do it here for this episode of the Lakers Lowdown. Went a little longer here than I thought. Thank you, everybody, for those questions and the comments and all of that. The best way to get your question or comment on the show is to leave it in the 5-star review. Second best, obviously, is with a super comment. I answer all of those whenever they come up. And I get to play with my favorite sounder that is affiliated with the show. So more of those, please. Please do hit that subscribe button. If you're watching on Twitter right now, go to youtube.com/@LakersLounge. If you are listening in audio form, hit that subscribe button wherever it is that you get your podcast, preferably Odyssey. And until tomorrow, when the Lakers are in action again against the Toronto Raptors, and I don't think I'll be watching that one with the guys. But after the game, I will be live to recap that one with you right here in the Lakers Lounge. So until then, and until the next time you guys hear from me, I'm Anthony Irwin saying have a great rest of your day. Make somebody else's, and I will talk to you tomorrow.